In this section, we will delve a little deeper into the types of disturbance and threats you might find at your rare plant sites and how to suggest management actions to better conserve the population.
If you believe there is a threat or disturbance affecting your target population, please fill out the management section on the New England Rare Plant Reporting Form so we can alert the landowners or natural heritage and work to protect the population. If you do not see any threats, simply check No Evidence of Threat and move on to the next section. Additionally, if you find a threat or disturbance not listed in the New England Rare Plant Reporting Form, please list it in the Comments on Disturbance and Threats field. Volunteers can also write up management proposals for rare plant sites to suggest how to alleviate population threats. Example management proposals can be found in your PCV handbook. We will now briefly go through some of the main types of threats you should be familiar with before conducting your surveys. The first type of threat listed in the New England Rare Plant Reporting Form is altered hydrology. This class of threats can be broken into three main types: dams, storms and flooding, and drought. Damming of rivers, either man-made or made by wildlife, can greatly alter the hydrology both above and below the obstruction. Rare plant sites above a dam may experience flooding, destroying the site, while plants below the dam may experience lower water levels and drought. As our climate changes, we may experience more intense storms bringing high volume downpours in a short period of time, which can result in flooding, which can kill plants and destroy habitat. Lastly, drought can have significant impacts on rare plants. Sustained drought can cause them to wither and die.
The next category of threats is called direct human threats. These threats include situations where people are directly harming rare plants, such as by trampling, habitat alteration, poaching, and littering. Trampling covers any time that a person directly crushes a plant. This includes people who are hiking or walking, as well as those on bikes or motorized vehicles. If you noticed that some of your target plants have been crushed, or think that they may be crushed due to their proximity to a path or trail, please describe the situation in the Comment on Disturbance and Threats field. Next is habitat alteration. Habitat alteration is where humans alter the environment at a rare plant site to the point that it is unlikely that it will continue supporting the population. Examples of habitat alteration include clear-cutting a forested area, paving a site completely, as pictured in the slide, and even mowing at inappropriate times of the year. Another form of habitat alteration is spraying pesticides and herbicides, which can directly impact a rare plant population. If you notice a lot of dead vegetation matter in an area in the growing season where the rare plant is supposed to occur, this is possibly the result of pesticide or herbicide spraying. One of the main reasons we keep much of our rare plant data secret is because of the fear that some plants, such as rare orchids or ginseng, can be poached by illegal plant hunters. While rare, there have been a few cases of possible poaching reported, so please make sure to keep your data secret. One obvious sign of poaching is if entire plants have been dug up or if a certain part of the plant anatomy, such as fruiting heads, have all been removed from the plants. If you suspect that a site has been poached, please contact the community science coordinator right away. Finally, humans create a lot of trash, and unfortunately, some of it can find its way to rare plant sites. Litter can often directly harm plants by crushing them or introduce foreign substances to the ecosystem, which can negatively impact plants.
The next category of threat is erosion. Erosion of soil can greatly reduce the amount of available habitat for rare plant species. Erosion mainly takes the forms of ice scour and stream or river incision. Ice scour occurs when large slabs of ice form in rivers during the winter and then are pushed up onto the banks, scraping the shoreline and destroying available habitat. With increases in significant rain and runoff events, stream bank and riverbank erosion has become an important issue. High velocity waters will cause a river or stream to cut further down, eventually separating it from its natural floodplain with serious impacts on the water table and shoreline habitats. Next is fire suppression. Up until the early to mid 1900s, fire has played an important role in the New England landscape by reorganizing both the structure and dynamics of communities. Breakthroughs in firefighting technology in the mid-1900s allowed for more effective fire suppression, greatly impacting the New England landscape. For our purposes, if you find that a rare plant site is experiencing a buildup of detritus and dead woody materials such as branches and leaves, to the point that your rare plants are having trouble growing, please mark the threat as fire suppression. Additionally, if your target plants grow in habitat that is fire dependent, such as sandplain grasslands, sandplain heathlands, pitch pine barrens, and scrub oak barrens, and these habitats are shrinking due to a lack of fire, please also note fire suppression as a potential threat. One of the greatest threats to rare plants and all native plant species in New England is the presence of invasive plant species. Unencumbered by natural predators, invasive species can quickly overtake an area, killing native plants. Several major invasive plant species are pictured on the slide, including glossy buckthorn, Frangula alnus, common reed, Phragmites australis, garlic mustard, Alieria petiolata, and Asian bittersweet, Celastris orbiculatus. These are just a few of the roughly 195 species considered invasive or likely to become invasive in New England. To learn more about the invasive species in your state, please review the New England Invasive Species Status Spreadsheet included in this section. If you notice invasive species during your survey, please check the Invasive Species checkbox on the New England Rare Plant Reporting Form. There is also a separate field for reporting invasive species, shown at the bottom of the slide, in order of which ones are the most abundant at the site. It is very important that you familiarize yourself with the invasive plant species listed in the states you are planning to survey, so you are able to identify and report them so we can work to protect our native plant populations. Succession, the ecological process of change in a plant community, can also become a threat to rare plant populations. While a natural process, humans have impacted succession by reducing the number of natural disturbances, such as fire. Because of this, habitats that rely on early or mid-level successional stages will slowly be crowded out and replaced by later successional habitats. In the field, if you find that your target population is suffering from competition from other plant species, even native species, or if your population is being shaded out by a closing tree canopy, you should list succession as a potential threat. Another potential threat that you may need to report on is herbivory. The most common herbivores that threaten rare plant populations include deer, rabbits and woodchucks, and insects. With the removal of most predators in New England, deer populations have exploded, resulting in an increase in deer herbivory. Deer lack upper incisors, so deer herbivory usually results in jagged edges on leaves and stems. Another cause of herbivory damage are rabbits and woodchucks. With sharp upper incisors, rabbits and woodchucks result in a clean cut at a 45-degree angle when browsing on plants. Lastly, there are numerous insect species that use plants as their primary food source. Based on their size, insects will often eat small parts of leaves and stems, but not remove the entire leaf or stem. Once you have reported the types of threats and disturbances impacting the rare plants you surveyed, we will also ask you to report their scope and severity. Scope refers to what percentage of your population is currently impacted by the threat or disturbance. For example, if 4 out of 10 plants have been trampled, you would list the scope of the threat as 25 to 50%. Severity of threat is a bit more subjective. This field asks you to extrapolate the impacts listed threats or disturbances might have on a population in the next 10 years. If there is a stand of Phragmites located right next to your population and is already crowding out plants, it is fairly likely that the Phragmites will continue spreading and result in 100% mortality in the next 10 years. Severity of threat is likely one of the most difficult fields we will ask you to report for your target population, but it is important to help us prioritize populations for future management, so please give it your best guess. Once you have reported on the threats and disturbances present at your target population site, we encourage you to describe potential actions to mitigate current threats in the Comments on Management Needs field. This field is not required, but it is very useful for us to understand the level of involvement needed to help ameliorate the situation. On the slide, please find a few real examples of management suggestions that have been offered for different threat and disturbance categories. Please try to be realistic with your suggestions. We may not be able to eradicate all deer, but we can potentially put up an exclosure around the population to prevent deer from eating rare plants. If you have any questions about management suggestions, please contact the Ecological Programs Coordinator, Eric Seckler, at fseckler@nativeplanttrust.org.
Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at mkennedy@nativeplanttrust.org.